welcome back to the channel for my Season 11 ranking updates video. So since Season 11 has finished, it is now a new entry that we can add to our rankings and such, and rather than going back and remaking every single ranking video I've done to include Season 11, I'm instead, as I have done for the past 2 seasons, just going to make one video where I explain where Season 11 would fit into my rankings. We have 8 different lists that we are going to be updating today, and those will include stuff like the intros, the villains, and we'll end off the video with my rankings of all of the seasons and where Season 11 would fit into that. Basically, first I'll explain what I thought of that aspect, and then I will show you my new updated list. Let's begin with ranking the intros. Season 11 is the first not to have the previously on Ninjago, and while the concept for this intro was good, it was executed really poorly. Essentially, the concept is basically that the intro itself serves as a recap, and I think that was a good idea on paper. I also like that the Fire and Ice chapter intros were slightly different, and also with the shift back to a lighter tone, the return of the Weekend Whip was pretty cool too. The Wicked Whip isn't perfect, but overall I feel like it was pretty good. However, despite all of this, the recaps are horrible. Instead of recapping the past episode, the intros recap the events leading up to that, and so we see Zane sacrifice like 5 times or something in the Ice chapter. It was just very annoying to see the same clips constantly played over and over again in the intros, and they should have done it like they did in the past 10 seasons with the previous episode being recapped. We already know all this background info, we don't need it constantly reiterated. Also, the audio is fine and the Wicked Whip is pretty good, but I feel like the use of it in the intro was pretty underwhelming. They should have used parts from the chorus rather than just instrumental and a few lines thrown here and there. The Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu intro is my least favorite, and I just feel like it lacks any personality. More could have been done to make it stand out. And now let's talk about ranking the villains. Season 11 features 3 new main villains that I'm going to add to the list, those being Asphira, the Ice Emperor, and Vex. And let's start with Asphira. Asphira is a villain with a lot of potential but ended up being really lame in the final product. Instead, she just screams about revenge, and the concept is really cool for her. Her design looks awesome, but ultimately I feel like she is a really bland villain. So the Ice Emperor, first of all, the concept is amazing. He's literally evil Zane. I don't think he can get much better than that. And what I love is how cold and robotic he feels. Basically taking these 2 aspects from Zane and turning it into a villain. I also really like how mysterious he is and how intimidating his character is. If the Ice Emperor had more screen time, I think he would definitely be higher up on my list. And lastly, Vex. The best part about Vex is definitely his voice acting. It sounds really manipulative and cunning, and I think they did a great job with that. He's also just such an evil character, and I think that's what people definitely love about him. Ultimately, though, he gets the side villain treatment in the last 2 episodes, and has a pretty lame conclusion. In the end, I would put Asphira in the bad villain category, in between Iron Baron and Crux. And as for the Ice Emperor and Vex, I feel like they're good, not great villains, and so I've put them side by side in 8 and 9, with the Ice Emperor being a bit better than Vex. So we're now going to discuss a few villain subcategories, and let's first talk about motives. So with Asphira, I mean, again, her main thing is revenge, and the concept itself wasn't terrible. I guess it was just the execution that was really bad with her constantly screaming revenge, although I do wish that, again, the treacherous deceiver had actually betrayed her, and that it was anyone other than Wu, because again, Wu having a past with the villain is really boring at this point. So Vex's motivations in the past are to get revenge on the Formlings for rejecting him, and what I think is slightly more interesting than Asphira is that it is kind of implied that the Formlings did reject him to some extent. In the modern day, his motives are to get rid of the ninja to continue ruling the Neverrealm, and I mean, that's kind of boring, but all in all, Vex's motives aren't terrible, and also I should mention that I'm not going to do the Ice Emperor considering he didn't really have any motives. He was basically just being used by Vex the whole time. So here is the motivations list. And again, Harumi is still going to be the best. I mean, I don't think anything will beat that. But as for Vex and Asphira, both are revenge-type characters, which is why I have put them side by side. So now let's discuss their soundtracks. And let me start by saying the Ice Emperor's soundtrack is amazing. Basically, it is an evil rendition of Zane's theme, and considering how great the original version is, an evil-sounding version will definitely be great. And I really love how cold, mysterious, and menacing it is. Vex's theme is relatively simple. It basically is a 4-note motif consisting of higher pitched notes, and you know, it's fine. I mean, I don't think it's meant to be anything that fleshed out, but ultimately it doesn't really compare to some of the other villain soundtracks out there. And on the other hand, Asphira's theme is really good. It does play during the end credits sometimes, and is a rendition of the Serpentine theme. And what I really love is how chaotic but yet intimidating it sounds. So I'm gonna put Vex towards the bottom. Again, not bad, but not as fleshed out as some of the other soundtracks. And let's put Asphira in number 6 and the Ice Emperor in number 2. Again, both of these are really good soundtracks, and as usual, the composers have really done a great job. And lastly, for the villains, let's take a look at their backstories. All 3 of these villains have relatively strong backstories this season. And starting with Asphira, I thought her backstory was pretty interesting, and again, really does help to build on the Serpentine lore a bit more. While I don't like the whole wound garment thing again, I really do like that she actually learns Spinjitzu, which is something you rarely see in Ninjago. And the final fight with having to defeat her with Forbidden Spinjitzu was also really cool. The Ice Emperor's backstory was also really well done too, and I do feel like a few lazy moves were done here and there, especially with Zane's memory having been erased. However, I do like Vex's role, and how Vex Vex essentially created the Ice Emperor. The incorporation of forbidden spinjitzu is cool, but could have been emphasized a bit more. But ultimately, I do feel like the concept for this backstory was amazing to start with. And lastly, Vex. I really enjoyed the idea of Vex actually being a formling, and also how he is essentially powerless and he becomes an ice samurai, but even after that he doesn't really have that many powers. He basically has to use his own words in order to get what he wants, rather than physical strength. So overall, very good job with backstory for the season. The Ice Emperor, Asphira, and Vex will take 4, 5, and 6 respectively on my list. Alright, so no more villain stuff. Let's take a look at ranking the realms, since Season 11 actually does introduce a new realm, which is the Netherrealm. And I gotta say, the Netherrealm was definitely better than what I expected. I like the concept of the Netherrealm essentially being this icy world that is peaceful, but there are a few threats out there too, like the wolves and the bird. And at the same time, there are also so many different groups of people, like the king and his people who would later become the Ice Samurai. You also have the people of Great Lake, and of course the Kita and the other formlings. And there are also a lot of very cool locations too, especially of course the Ice Emperor's castle. And overall, there was excellent world building for the Netherrealm, and it definitely paid off. I would probably say that, other than Ninjago obviously, the Netherrealm is my favorite realm, and around the same level as the Cursed Realm and the First Realm, which by the way rhyme, but I feel like the Netherrealm is a little bit better due to more world building. And let's talk about the season finales. I do feel like while Awakenings is a good episode, it is generally one of the weaker finales. And I don't think it is a good idea to confine your season finale to one 11-minute episode. It ends up being very rushed, and while Zane's redemption is decent, the endings for Kai and Nia's stories are really not good. And I definitely think it would be in their best interest to do 2-episode finales in the future. Regardless of all this though, I do still feel like it was a fairly enjoyable finale, but just could have been improved in some areas. I don't feel like any of the finales are bad, but I do have Awakenings in 10th place, with its brother endings, the 2 INGs. And so finally, where will season 11 fit amongst my rankings of the other seasons? Basically, I think this was a pretty bad season. First of all, it suffers heavily from too much filler, which ends up taking away from the main plot quite a bit. And as a result, the main plot gets really rushed. And then also the characters feel pretty dumbed down, they don't feel as complex as they were before, and the transition from March of the Oni into this wasn't very good. And so instead we go straight from a dark season, which was of course season 10, to the very childish fire chapter. I can't emphasize enough how much potential this season had, and I really do mean it when I say it has the best concepts of the show, but ultimately it ends up taking the safe route a lot, and it ends up being pretty predictable. But in the end, this season is not only my least favorite season, but my least favorite installment of Ninjago yet, and yes, even worse than Hands of Time and Day of the Departed. It's weird to think that Day of the Departed is actually better than something, but I guess anything is possible. And so that will wrap up this video, and this will wrap up my season 11 coverage. It's been quite a long ride, almost a year even since the first leak started coming, and I hope you have enjoyed my season 11 videos. And I'm happy to say that we'll finally be doing some other stuff now, and so I'll be posting some more general Ninjago content about the older seasons and stuff in the future. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with anyone ever you know, and let me know where Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu would fall in your rankings. Once again, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.